Today's lesson is on negative exponents. We're just going to get straight into it. So we're going to go ahead and begin with examples. And I wrote a few examples. I wrote 5. So these are my examples. In the first problem, I have 8 raised to the power of negative 3. So before I do anything with my exponent, my negative exponent, I'm going to look at the base. Our base is 8. So what I want to do is I want to convert 8 into a fraction. So when we have any whole number, like 8 for instance, if we want to convert that into a fraction, all we have to do is put it over 1. So 8, written by itself, is the same or equivalent to 8 over 1. So now that we have that, we want to take the reciprocal of that, and reciprocal basically means doing the inverse, or really just switching the fraction. So if we were to find the reciprocal of 8 over 1, we're just going to make that 1/8. And we do that because then that makes our exponent positive. So now we can solve this like we would any other problem with an exponent. So all we have to do is multiply 1/8 by itself 3 times. But once we do that, we would get 1 over 512. And that would be our answer. So 8 raised to the power of negative 3 equals 1 over 512. But also 8 raised to the power of 3 is equivalent to 1/8 raised to the power of 3. So now let's take a look at our second example, which is 4 raised to the power of negative 2. So what is the first step? Before we look at the exponent, we want to look at the base. So our base is 4, and if we make 4 into a fraction, that becomes 4 over 1. And then once again, we have to flip that, or in other terms, find the reciprocal, and make 4 over 1, 1 over 4. And in doing that, our exponent becomes positive 2. It's no longer raised to the negative second power, it is positive 2. And now we can solve this problem, any other problem with an exponent. So all we do, multiply 1 over 4 by itself 2 times, and we get 1 over 16. Now we're going to go on to the third problem, and this one is a bit different than the first two we did, but as long as we follow the same steps we did in the first two problems, we'll be able to solve this one just fine. We have 5 over 2. Now, we don't have to worry about making our base a fraction because our base is already a fraction. All we have to do is flip the numerator and the denominator. And in doing that, our exponent becomes positive, and we get 2/5 raised to the 4th, or the power of 4. And then, once again, we're able to just solve this like any other problem with an exponent. And we multiply 2 over 5 by itself 4 times. And we get 16 over 625. So for our second to last problem, we have negative 6 to the power of negative 5. So now we're dealing with a negative number. But once again, we would still follow the same steps. So speaking of steps, what would be our first step? Exactly. We want to convert our base into a fraction. And so negative 6 as a fraction is written as negative 6 over 1. Now, what do we do next? We flip that fraction, or find the reciprocal, and that becomes 1 over negative 6. Which then makes our exponent positive So 1 over negative 6 raised to the power of 5. And we go in and we solve this problem, and we get 1 over 7,776. And for the last problem, I would love for you all to do it on your own. You got this. Okay, so as you can see here, I followed the first step, which is finding the reciprocal and switching the numerator with the denominator, which then makes our exponent positive. So negative 3 over 6 raised to the power of negative 3 equals 6 over negative 3 raised to the power of 3. And that equals 6 over negative 3 multiplied by itself 3 times, which equals negative 8. So if you got negative 8, you got this right. Congratulations. And that concludes this lesson on negative exponents.